Welcome to our event tonight. Thank you very much for coming out. My name is Russ Clegg. I work in the planning department with the city of Greensboro, and I manage the long-range planning division, and one of the things we handle is our historic district program, which includes three locations on the historic districts. I also live in one of the districts, so I know we have our guidelines and standards, I should say, have served us well for quite a few years, but we are starting to update those. So things changes in technology, both with how we can, apply or some new material. We're scheduled to go to about 8 o'clock. She has a nice tight agenda arranged for us. So we'll be able to get a lot of good thoughts and ideas out. This is our first public meeting. We'll take this information, follow it up with some surveys and some other communications, put a draft together and get that back out in a few months to you and sort of see what that looks like and get some more public input at that point. For this evening, restrooms are down that way. The exits are at either hall, and also back there is an emergency exit if we need one. But at this point, again, I just want to thank everybody. I'm going to hand it over to Samantha Stewart of Gate City Preservation. As I said, she has a nice agenda that she'll go over. And if you have any questions, I'll be around. Thank you.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you everyone so much for showing up tonight. I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for all three of the historic districts, as well as city staff and commissioners to get together. I know this doesn't happen very often, so I think this is going to be a great opportunity. I'd like to first ask if Mike Cowick and Stephen Lee Geary could stand up and raise their hands. Mike and Stephen Lee, as many of you know, are city planning staff that work with historic preservation. They are our biggest supporters and we owe them a lot and we thank them so much. They are the facilitators of this process and they have hired me to assist them with this update. I'd also like any commissioners present or past to please stand and raise your hand. Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your service. Let's get a round of applause for our commissioners. Thank you so much for your service in making sure that the standards are upheld, that we are good communicators with all of our neighbors, and that we all work together as a team to keep our neighborhoods beautiful, functional, lovely places to live that are walkable and useful for modern needs, while also respecting the historic character. So thank you all. Come on in. If you haven't already, please sign in. There will be a survey at the end of this where you'll have the opportunity to share more of your thoughts. We really want the purpose of this meeting to be very collaborative. And so the presentation I do here is going to be extremely brief just to get us all in the right mindset. Then we'll have a collaborative activity, get back together and discuss. Here's a quick look at our agenda that we're hoping to stick to here. You'll see right after my quick presentation, you're going to have the opportunity to write responses. So in this room over here, I will have about half of you go into the room and write some thoughts and responses to a few questions that we have that are written on the top of pieces of paper in here. It could be free form. Don't feel like you have to leave your name. It can be anonymous, but you'll just be responding to some questions that we're prompting you related to our historic neighborhoods to gather kind of sentiment and values across neighbors of what's important to you in your historic districts. And before we get started, we do have a few golden agreements for today's meeting to make sure we stay productive and respectful. We are all going to assume positive intent. We are going to respect all participants. We're going to stick to the agenda and time requirements, be open to different perspectives, speak openly, freely, and respectfully. Do we have any questions or concerns about our group golden agreements? Great. So I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Samantha Stewart, and I am the principal and founder of Gate City Preservation. And I also am a neighborhood resident. I live in College Hill on Tate Street. So I'm really happy to be the consultant that was selected for this process because I personally feel a very strong connection to College Hill, Dunleath, and Fisher Park, and to Greensboro. So I'm very fortunate to be able to be working on this project with the city. And I'm joined today by Kara Harding. Do you want to come introduce yourself, Kara?
Hi, I'm Kara, and I'm her current intern. And I'm a graduate student at UNCG in interior architecture and getting my historic preservation certificate.
Thank you, Kara. All right. So we already identified our planning department staff that are here in attendance, as well as our current preservation commissioners and our past. Go ahead. So what is the purpose of today's meeting? When it comes to the design standards, the standards themselves are based on the National Park Service's Secretary of the Interior Standards for Historic Rehabilitation. So we are not going to be discussing the standards themselves and changes we would like to see in regards to the kind of rules and guidelines that we follow as owners and stewards of these historic properties. So just want to get that out front. That is not in negotiation today. What we will be talking about and what we are seeking feedback for today is both the COA process. So that's the certificate of appropriate process, how we submit them, how they go to the commission, things like that, the actual process of doing a COA, as well as the format of the new design standards. So today we're going to be having open discussions about neighborhood values, personal past experiences with the design standards and COA process. And we're going to collaborate on ways that the new standards can be more accessible, clear, and useful for us as property owners and as commissioners and staff. So on the left here is the current design standards. I'm sure many of you have seen this document. It was created by Joe Limenstall, and it has served us very well over the past few decades. Thank you, Stephanie. And for those on Zoom who couldn't hear that, Joe got us started. She did the 2 versions before this standards document. This document was created with a committee, many of whom are probably in this room. And so clearly a very comprehensive team came together to create our current standards. And so when it comes to the meaning and content, it's not going to significantly change because, again, it's based on the Secretary of Interior standards. And to the right here, this document, this is our current COA form. All right, that is the end of our brief presentation, just in time. If you are seated at a table or surrounding, I'm going to go ahead and have group 1 and 2 enter this room here. If you can see on your tables, in the center of your table, you should have a group number. Hi. Nice to see you all. I don't think I know you guys. What neighborhood are you with? Oh, okay, so you're in College Hill. You're my neighbor. Okay, cool. 17. You're right by me. I knew I recognized you. Do you really? What street are you on? Oh, cool. Yeah, so this is the College Hill table a little bit then. Great.
The location tip the scales a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. It's hard to find a perfectly central one right in the neighborhood. Great. So just right off the bat, general thoughts. Do you have any thoughts or ideas related to the standards or the COA process?
One thing I'd like to see is
Can you take some notes for me, Kara?
the standards on the PDF, the entire resolution. Some pictures are more difficult to see.
So you're having difficulty seeing things with the resolution of current pictures. Yep, that's a common comment I get. Higher resolution pictures and images. What else?
I think I'm a big fan of.
Happy with them how they are.
Happy with them how they
That's
are.
great feedback too.
For the process, and I like the way that we do behave like stewards and keep to the appropriateness of the time periods of the houses.
Great.
Which is amazing, because I'm cold a lot of the time.
Yes.
And hot a lot some.
Another thing I would like is if they were easy to find on the website.
More easily findable. Yep, on the website. Got it. You guys have any thoughts preliminarily?
It's funny because I reread them before this, and as somebody that updates documents a lot for my job, I actually had a funny nitpicking thought.
Oh, what's that?
Was, there's a spot where it talks about 50 years and the fact that we're looking at houses that are approximately 50 years in age. And I was thinking, when this document was approved, that was actually a more relevant number.
Right.
But now that's 1974.
And that is,
Quickly moving towards the 80s.
and honestly, that's kind of the point of that 50-year mark, is that it is always moving. And
Yeah.
74 is historically significant now. So maybe it just needs to be rephrased to recognize that these
Yeah.
mid-century properties, industrial and residential, are supposed to be included now.
But then all of our guidelines are for the old definition of
Yeah,
phase.
right.
And, you know, as somebody, I'm in a 1985 property that was built to match the historic standard.
Right.
And so it's going to, like, I'm currently in the exempt section, but as that 50-day moves.
It's becoming
not
eligible
actually Addressed how to.
right down 1950 years.
examples for properties that are
And
probably
folks
more
on Zoom, feel free to type questions in the chat. Right.
Does that mean property if it was 50? Because
No,
if we were-
it starts with the date of construction.
Okay.
What about you, my Mendenhall neighbor? Any thoughts?
Not preliminarily.
Okay, we'll get back to you. I got to hit the other tables, but keep things going in your mind and you'll have a chance to write down your thoughts. Yeah, of course. Hey, folks, I recognize some of you over here. Hi, good to see you. Yep, nice to see you, Eric. And we got David, we got Kara, Joe. So this is my little College Hill group. I know all you folks, but can you introduce yourselves, Tim?
Sure, I'm Tim, Fisher Park on North Elm, the Valley Baptist Building,
Very cool. And where are you living?
living on Carr Street.
You're my neighbors. Nice to meet you. Awesome. Good to meet you guys. Are you in the house that's now bright blue?
No.
Which house are you on?
Where's the burgundy shutters?
Purple house. Oh, I love that house. Burgundy shutter house. I recognize you from the COA meeting last time. Good to see you. I'm glad you came today. I was hoping you were going to come. You look very familiar.
I live in South.
Fisher Park. Nice to meet you. And where are you? Hi, nice to meet you, Cindy.
I saw you out on the tour.
So, any preliminary thoughts from you all about the COA process, the design standards, anything you want to just throw out before we get into the deep discussion? About the COA process and the design standards, do you have any preliminary thoughts? Happy with how it is? That's good feedback. Joe's got something.
Under design standards, when it's required to use the exact same materials such as wood for wood,
Mhm.
I think that needs to be looked at a little closer, that possibly something that is more of a modern material than wood, and to replace things like that.
Composite.
Yes.
As technology for composite changes, reassessing that standard.
Our outbuilding, we put up, and it's lap siding.
Yep.
But it's hardy plank
Yeah,
instead of wood.
you can't tell. Yeah. The standards currently have been approving hardy plank for accessory buildings and additions. So yes,
I would like to see them starting to approve composite windows.
okay.
That-
Composite windows. Okay.
What's that? Because the old-fashioned windows are just not efficient. Even if you can get.
Window efficiency.
You know, and I've got some that can't get fixed because I bought them how many years ago?
Goodness.
36 years ago. That company.
Window repair. Yep.
So I can't replace any of the parts. And I'm looking to replace the windows, and the only game out there is like composite windows.
Interesting. Okay. We'll explore that. Any thoughts from back row? Yes.
And I know that some talk has been parts, meetings about, addressing realtors, people who are buying into these neighborhoods,
Mm-hmm.
providing guidelines that they're expected to adhere to right
Yep.
off the bat.
Yep.
Would be super helpful if then if we could, like, how wordy do you want these COAs?
Wordy.
Yeah, like.
Mm-hmm.
For us to address every single bullet like number in each one of the guidelines.
Length of word content for COAs, bullets or paragraphs.
Who's
Awesome.
responsible for that communication?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, if possible, and how many people are the point of contact for guiding us? Is it like, for instance,
Okay. Yep. Got it. Anything else?
there's some.
Mhm.
They don't, that was built, I don't know,
Mhm.
but because it's not part of the original house that you could do.
So it's a separate building. So even if it, oh, it's connected? Oh, it's an addition. Yeah. So I think if you wanted to replace siding with hardy board, that would require a COA, definitely. But I know that with new additions, especially if they're in the rear of the house, they've been approving it. I'm not 100% sure about existing, but I think it's probably would also be approved, but more clarification on that.
Been approved in cases where, the wood gets very wet.
Yeah.
Repeatedly rots.
Yep.
There's a lot of resistance to just replacing wood with composite.
Mm-hmm.
I think the feeling is that the authentic original materials matter. That's part of the historic heritage.
And that's part of the national standards too, is that you want to retain materials wherever possible. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very expensive to do cedar. Yeah. Yeah. Cost is a big issue, right? Cost. It was nice. Oh, yeah. Energy, sustainability, energy efficiency. Yeah. Okay. Nice to meet you all. We're going to make our rounds to this next table. Hello, folks. I recognize a lot of these faces. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Do you have any, well, I guess first, where's Kara? Hey, first introductions. I met you at the last meeting. Nice to see you again. And do you live in one of the historic neighborhoods? You're in Fisher Park? Right. Yes, with you and, you're kidding. Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Yeah, Cheryl, we were working on the UNCG properties together. I'm Samantha, so yes.
Still working on.
We're still working, but things are very promising though. And Emily, where do you live? Oh, very cool. All right, neighbor, nice to meet you. Oh, that's so cool. It's really nice to meet you. And Linda, it's so nice to see you. And you're in Fisher Park. Is that right? Great. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. And Keisha, you're the president of Fisher Park Neighborhood Association, right? It's good to see you. So before we kind of jump in and you're able to write your thoughts, do you have any preliminary thoughts about either the COA process or the design standards themselves that you were kind of bringing to the meeting?
I think the design standards need to include more new construction.
More information on new, hey, Kara, more information on new construction. Okay.
So. Very clear language.
Mm-hmm. Clearer language for everything or specifically new construction?
Everything,
For everything.
and everything online.
Everything online. Okay. Did you get that, Kara? Everything online?
And with prompts, not just what are you gonna do, but, or tell me about your project, because having been on the COA committee for the
Mhm.
past however many gajillion years. How many years is it, like 5? 5. It'd be like a half a sentence, and you have no idea what they were up to, or some it'd be like 4 pages.
Better prompts for COA applications.
And like some. Yeah, here's character limitation too. We've also got some books.
It's just super long. Yeah. I think we've been discussing making it online, the COA application. And if you do that, it allows you to set a character limit and also encourage the information that you need with different prompts.
Yes, prompts.
Examples, language, that's how you would describe.
Exactly. And it can have something on there where you can directly upload photographs and architectural plans and other things. So when the commission receives them, they're high res, just the file scanned. I think that would make a big difference.
That would be very helpful.
I think the trees have to be a big category of understanding what happens in a historic neighborhood.
Completely agree.
Today, Isabel, JR Trees was taking down something big and I didn't have time to get into it.
Yeah.
Texting Mike, he couldn't answer me. I don't want to be the tree bully, but it's like.
Someone's got to do it.
are
Yeah.
Not doing it right.
No,
Trees with 5 underlines.
it's just so funny because random people coming into the neighborhood always say to me, the first thing they say is, I love all the trees. And then the second thing they say is, I'd like to take down my tree, but the
Right.
leaves kind of fall on my
Exactly.
house."
Exactly.
They're standing around waiting to do.
Right. I hear that so much too. Right,
There is a great lack of information. Putting it up high on the list, you know that you need a COA.
right,
To take down anything bigger than 4 inches at 5 feet off the ground.
right,
whatever that is in the book.
right. More specifications on measurement,
But they don't even want to take your call either, like.
right.
It's terrible. You should know, but I.
What about you, Keisha? Anything?
Right.
I'd like to see a way to enforce things.
Enforcement,
Yeah, it's like we've got 2 examples I know of in the neighborhood. They've gone through the process, they've been told to do some things, and they still haven't, and they haven't done it.
yep, enforcement, and I think we're ready to do that too. If you guys want to go ahead and go in and write your thoughts, we'll do
I
group
would
3.
still like to see a fine
Yes.
imposed
that's
for.
Fine, penalties and fines.
After the fact COA,
Fine for after the fact. Yep, definitely.
and even if the fine is in the form of an application fee.
Right.
Or an after the fact COA.
Hey, Kara. Also add that fine may be part of an application fee for their after the fact COA. Group 4, I think maybe about half, if you all want to go and try to squeeze in, I think that there's some more room in there now if you'd like to write some thoughts. Yes. And for our folks on Zoom, do we have any questions or thoughts? All right, welcome, Mindy. Sorry, I didn't see you trying to get admitted here. Please let me know if you have any questions or thoughts in the chat. Hi, hi, folks.
Well, I'll make the story real quick, but she's waiting. All this never.
Hey, Eric, how's it going? Did you put your email and address? If you could just hang out here now, I could take notes. And you can admit people into the room.
Okay.
Do you see how that blue thing popped up and it said admit? Let's make sure we're doing that.
I just kind of stole one of those papers because I didn't know where.
That's fine. I'll keep doing that. Okay, so just check the Zoom chat here, and if you get any questions from people, come find me. Okay? Yes, please. Yes, please sign in.
All right, nice to see you.
Hi, folks. Are there any thoughts that you want to share about the COA process or design standards before you leave?
Yeah.
What were you wishing for?
To be honest with you, we thought it was gonna be more of an open forum about what changes that you guys were going to do. We didn't think it was gonna be a think tank session.
Okay,
Yeah.
And that was, the impression was not on the card, not on the
So
email,
for
whatever.
context, I live in the AM Scales home in Hamilton Lake.
oh yeah,
And I
beautiful house.
redid
Yeah,
the
and so
Thomas
we're
Hayes
big preservation
mid-century house.
Greensboro people. I mean, I've opened up my house to.
The home tour.
Yeah, and I.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and-
Where do you live?
I redid the Thomas Hayes house, the mid-century
On
flat
10%.
roof. on
Very
10%.
cool.
And so we kind of on a whim invested in College Hill. And we got smacked with the COA process because we didn't even have an
COA
understanding.
is not very accessible.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I want to hear people's input on that. That's why,
The key would be to somehow get that to every new homeowner.
yes, we completely
Like,
agree.
whenever you see.
When
a
you
deed
purchase
close,
or in.
We were
When a
trying
deed
to get it
closes,
to trigger when a
should
deed
be
closes.
the-
That is something that
should
we're,
be like, right.
yes,
So
we're looking into that.
That's kind of what we thought, and our biggest issue is more in the materials. We're investors.
Mhm.
Modernization, I mean, so.
Where in College Hill did you guys buy?
Mendenhall on the corner of Mendenhall and.
In Carr? Ah, yes, I know that house.
Yeah,
I know that
so we
house.
started and we stopped.
We stopped.
Yeah, I could tell that
Well,
things had kind of
it's not-
frozen.
The previous landlords over the last 20+ years have just butchered.
I know, it's terrible. That house was in terrible shape.
It's.
Our
it's
intentions were to bring it
literally-
back to period,
It's in
but
it, I mean.
we found the whole process so intrusive that
That
it's
we-
actually made us never we plan never to invest in Greensboro again. And you're talking,
Oh.
we've done 17 properties.
Oh, that's horrible.
Yeah.
So
The-
I'm just, right now we're looking at properties in
Winston
Winston,
and-
Kernersville.
And so we thought that this was
outside
gonna
the
be kind of
beach.
talking more about more
Like, and
specifics rather than like generalization.
Yeah.
It's after we do people writing their thoughts on the cards, we are going to have, a general discussion amongst everyone on their thoughts, just anything related to COA process and all of that. And then at the end, just a time for individual comments as well. But I'm glad I grabbed you before you
As
left.
far as the C-
Well, I've taken your comments to heart.
Yeah.
A lot of them reflect things that we already were looking into, and we're going to be sending a survey after this. So if you have anything additional, if you have not yet written your responses to the questions, please do so now. Oh,
I'll email.
I know where to find you. I know that house.
Find me that.
Here's my card.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're
Pleasure to
welcome.
meet you.
Great to meet you guys.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, please come on in. Don't you listen to him. Hi. Good pictures. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Hi, welcome. If you could please sign in, doing your name tag. So good to see you.
I stuck him a Julie. down in Florida.
Sneaky. Hi. And did you get a chance to write your thoughts on those questions yet? Excellent.
Oh, you're so
Did you guys write your responses yet?
Yes.
Awesome. Did you guys get a chance to write your responses?
Yes, we did.
What about you, sir? Did you get a chance to write your thoughts in there? Excellent. Hi, Patty. Did you get a chance to write your responses in there? Excellent. What about you, Anne? Did you get a chance to write in there? Okay. Feel free to add more if you need to. Did you folks have a chance to write your thoughts on the papers in there? Great. Did you guys have a chance to write your responses? Excellent. You guys get a chance to write your thoughts?
How are we doing, Chief?
Doing good. We're right on schedule. So glad you guys came. Good College Hill turnout tonight. Very impressed. If you want to help me, we are now going to get everybody back in their groups and assign responses to them. Okay, so we're going to take the papers out of there and put it on their tables. Okay. All right, everyone. The response section is now complete. So if you could please return to your tables. And for the folks on Zoom, I'm going to put this microphone here with this group.
I mean, these are all reasonable things, and I think it covers most everything.
Yeah.
The only thing I would think of, that you might look at and add to it would be for our neighborhood, the diversity of age groups. Because we have a lot of college kids.
Yeah. I think there are certain people in our neighborhood that do not consider that a feature.
That is true.
Well, but why would you move to a place? I mean, there's several signs that say College Hill, you
Right.
know, like. So
I've
if you're
often made that argument.
if you're expecting a
Right.
quiet Friday night and you move to
Yeah.
College Hill,
Right,
and
right.
like, when did you move?
I mean,
And some people don't think that's a bad thing. Like you
Well,
said,
I
some
mean,
people
like,
think it's a feature.
I'm long since used to it, but
Yeah.
I've definitely had neighbors that did not realize what they were getting themselves into.
Right.
Yeah, I do always joke, if you're moving into a place called College Hill and you pull us up on the map and you see Greensboro College and UNCG, there's only so much warning we can give you.
It's very true. Right.
So it sounds like so much of what people like about the historic neighborhoods is what you see from the outside.
Yeah, that's a good
Should-
point.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's the cosmetics.
well, and also the parks and the trees, you know.
Well, and the fact that you're,
But yeah, also there's not like that one person said, not a development, it doesn't look like a development, which is nice. You could also probably say there's the variety of houses for finding a house that fits the size of your family or group or whatever.
Yeah, that's something I always find interesting. I don't know how much this applies to the other neighborhoods, but with like College Hill, you've got everything from like these big luxurious houses to like these adorable little bungalows.
Right.
All within this neighborhood.
My house is one story, the neighbor's is 3 stories.
But still, you can see everything. You can
But
see a lot of,
How much value do you put on the fact that the neighborhood has commercial properties in the neighborhood? I mean, you can walk to.
You mean like being able to go down to Tate Street or something, or what is that place on the corner of?
There's a little grocery store. And then
There's also a little grocery store on Spring Garden in Metropolitan.
yeah.
But I like having those
Firehouse?
things.
Yeah, yeah, I think those definitely, I think they're part of the walkability aspect.
Right, I definitely like having those things.
Yeah.
I'm not, I mean, I wouldn't encourage having too many more, except maybe on that real estate office at the corner of Metropolitan Market.
Right.
But apart from that, I wouldn't want anywhere to start to take out a house and put in a business.
Jim is to join you.
One problem that comes up consistently is people ignore the design standards, ignore the COA process, and do things that aren't appropriate. And it's very difficult for the city to summon up the will to actually do anything about it. It doesn't come up all that often, but it's consistent.
So one thing in College Hill that we've really been focusing on this last year in particular is how can we share information in a better way about the guidelines, the standards on the front end, especially with homeowners that are not, they don't live there in the neighborhood. They're absentee homeowners. So we formed a special committee called our Absentee Homeowner Committee, and it looks at things like that on how to share information.
Zoom is going to join you for a little while.
Yeah, behind the house.
Zoom.
Oh, and people argue about the trash, you know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what's so frustrating is a lot of what's really good about alleys is if you have a city that will do what they need to do, then you don't have to argue about stuff like, okay, our alley's got an issue and it needs to be paved or it needs to be gravel.
A challenge. I mean, it's one of your challenges. Maybe get a list of 5 or 6 challenges. That's definitely
Trash is picked up on average.
that ambiguity about
I think that's just might be a
alley ambiguity.
kind of an existing thing. It probably shouldn't be picked up. Well, there's a dumpster and the recycling cans for all of
Can you drive down? You can't get but one car down.
at a time.
I can get my Ram ProMaster down. I've done that. I mean, I don't know what they're using to pick up trash, but obviously they have a vehicle that does it. I don't know.
Big trucks go down there. I promise.
The truck can get through.
Yeah.
They can get through.
All right, everybody, let's go ahead and make our final points here. If you have not already, if you could identify your group speaker.
Okay, the question we have at our group 3 is how can we make the new design standards easier to use? And quite a few of the responses are duplicated, so I'm going to try and put them together. Online and searchable was a very important item. And also within that, it would be dedicated website for reference and easy to use. Within that, we would expect or hope that there could be pictures, glossary, hot links to know what, for instance, a fascia board is, or Greek key, or whatever. So it would be full of good photos and descriptions. The other item here is demolition permits trigger strengthen better resolution documents. And then we tied that with building permits to trigger COA check on address. So together we're putting this in. Has this been resolved by the permitting department within the city? Demo versus new build versus building in general permits. I don't know how to answer that or bring it. That's basically one item. And then we have clarity, simplicity, And again, describing the items with the verbiage to be really clear and pictorial. Clear formatting and language, again. Oh, this question we didn't quite know how to answer. What triggers the staff versus the HPC COA? And that is somewhat of a unique, I guess every COA is looked at uniquely and then it's decided by staff if it's repetitive to, I don't know.
It's not about what does or doesn't, it's the formatting layout is challenged to understand which sections are with which parts of it sometimes in the guidelines.
So
it's
by
more
that,
of
do you
a-
mean you want an infographic or something that's way more clear to be able to understand what goes to staff, what goes
Yep.
to the commission?
Yes, yeah, or what is exempt from a COA process, right? Just a better formatted page and layout.
And this was something that previous process that we went through, we heard the similar kind of concern to delineate what we use as major works versus minor works, and then no COA required. So that's in there already, and maybe this needs to be built on, extended, maybe used in a different way throughout the document. And the current document, so if you're looking at, well, here, I've got it in front of me. For example, hang on, I got to get these things because I can't read anymore without them. So this is under garages and accessory structures. Just turn to that. So the following projects do not require a COA. The following commonly requested projects do require a COA. It doesn't always break it down. Some of that section breaks it down into staff level versus commission level. But what I'm hearing is you want that in that section.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say just adding a language there that says see appendix for full list.
Okay.
That clearly calls out, go to this part of it for that. Because that is where I go first to see what is or what is not
Yeah.
the appendix.
Right.
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 So maybe even moving it out of the appendix to a more prominent page or adding better language on each page when you get to that section of where to find the specific breakdown. Okay, good feedback. What else did your team come up with, Linda?
I think that does
That
it.
sum it up?
Yeah, that sums it up for that question.
That is great. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
So our question was, where have you had problems with meeting the design standards? So some of the feedback that we got here, I'm just going to read these, and then our conversation evolved a little bit. So finding good quality building materials was one of the pieces of feedback that we received. Limited number of skilled craftspersons. Finding it's hard sometimes to find folks that understand how things were built 100 years ago and that you want to replicate as closely as possible renovation work that way, the same way. Also, kind of hand in hand with that, finding contractors who understand historical homes and in particular the COA process for doing a lot of different types of work in the historic districts.
Debating whether or not a dormer, etc., is original. Denying COAs off of false historical proof or lack of proof.
One of the challenges too is, and I think we all probably had experience with this, is resistance of some property owners to just a resistance to wanting to follow the standards, thinking somehow it doesn't apply to them, even if they are in the historic district. And then also a challenge with durability of replacing original materials, I guess with materials that are going to hopefully last a long time as well. And a lot of that, as we all know, goes to maintenance. But our conversations sort of moved in a different direction. And what we talked about a lot was a lack of enforcement when people have done work that is not, did not get a COA. They didn't apply for a COA application. They went ahead and did the work. It's not appropriate. And then you've got really, it's a violation of the standards, the guidelines. So there's also, we also kind of discussed where code compliance can it's an enforcement issue for HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, and the city. But it's also, you can also kind of have it going hand in hand with code compliance. And so one of the things that, so an example is we had a lovely couple buy a home in College Hill. They were so excited to be here, and they couldn't wait to start doing renovation work. And they found a contractor, and they were ready to start doing the work, and moved forward and ended up getting notice of a violation because the work did not receive a COA application, and the work was not compliant with the standards. So one of the things that we've talked about in College Hill recently, and we've spoken with Mike Cowhig and Stephanie Geary at the city about this, is there a way to have the permit department folks there get flagged if a permit application is coming through for work in one of the districts? Can that property have a flag kind of on that file for that property that says, hey, Mr. or Ms. Contractor, this is indeed in a historic district, and you're going to need to get a COA application submitted for that work.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So please correct me if I'm wrong, Russ and Steph and Lee, but I just applied for a COA and building permit, which turns out I didn't really need, but I'd rather do that than not, to move a historic shed from Fisher Park to my house, which I'm very excited about. And in that process, even though I submitted it to building inspections, it ended up on Mike Coward's desk for him to approve and say, yes, historic approves this. Is that something that you can speak to? Is that normal?
It is, I mean,
Why don't I have Mike come
Yeah.
up so that he can talk in the microphone?
So, yeah, and the latest update from Mike, and I know he'll speak to this, or I hope he will, is that you guys have made efforts to have that flagging done at the within GIS and how it overlaps into the systems within the permit department. Is that
Right.
correct?
That's correct. The city has a GIS-based, that's Geographic Information System. It's a mapping software, and it's geographic, meaning it's based on the lots in the city. But when someone applies for a permit, anytime one of the things they check is it in a historic district? And if it is, they send them up to our office, or most often all this is done electronically by email and what have you. It was a good example with Samantha's project. There is a permit system for projects that have to be reviewed by the city's technical review committee. Now, these are projects that are a little larger than, say, a renovation or repair project. She's moving a building onto her lot, and it has to meet zoning setback requirements. So it's reviewed for things like that. But I have to sign off on it electronically before they'll issue the permit. Somebody called me, a permit technician called me 2 days ago. Is 710 Country Club Drive historic? And the answer to that question was, yes, it's in a National Register Historic District. However, a certificate of appropriateness is not required in a National Register District unless it also happens to be a local historic district like College Hill is. But so there is a system in place that works pretty well. It's not infallible. Sometimes a contractor will come in for a permit to do interior work. Maybe they're renovating a bathroom or a kitchen, and okay, it's not exterior work. They'll issue the permit, and so often we see interior work spill over onto the exterior, and that's the problem area that we have to deal with. So, and the other thing about code compliance We have an absolutely exceptional code compliance officer right now. His name is Steve Brummingen. And when we get a call and someone says they're doing work over at 606 Magnolia Street and I don't see a green placard, I pick up the phone and call Steve, and he's over there in 30 minutes. If assuming he's in that day or he's not on vacation, and if he is, someone else will go check it out. But again, it's not an infallible system, and there are sort of built-in problems with the way enforcement works. People think, well, you can just issue a fine immediately, but you can't do that under this. And everything we do is based on North Carolina enabling legislation. But what has to happen is a notice of violation has to first be issued, has to be checked out and make sure it is a violation. And then a notice of violation is issued, and the way to remedy that violation is to obtain a certificate of appropriateness. So the property owner is given an opportunity to submit a COA, and if they don't submit that COA, then fines can begin. Now, that's not a perfect system either, because we've had people that don't respond to fines, and ultimately, in the worst case scenario, it ends up in court or could end up in court. So I will say we have better enforcement now than we ever had. So, and I see some people who could vouch for that in the room tonight. So,
Right.
okay.
So I think with this, and that's why this is such a timely and exciting project, is that College Hill in particular, one thing that we've really been focusing on the last 2 years in particular is making sure that we just share information and really make sure that we are consistently providing hard copies of the guidelines and the standards to all new homeowners. It comes in a welcome bag. We have a fabulous committee that does it, but being able to dovetail with that, not only the hard copy that's personally delivered, but having these guidelines more accessible, easier to understand. Then we share that information, we make people aware, and then there'll be additional places to go. And so it's exciting. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arlen and Arlen's group.
Our question was, what aspects of your historic neighborhood are most important to you? So we kind of got the fun one, let's be honest. So a very common theme was, of course, the beauty, the character, the quality of our historic neighborhoods. And that came out in a lot of ways, from things from proximity to parks, to walkability, proximity to downtown, our sidewalks, our streetlights, the preservation of the specific buildings, the variety of the buildings, that it's not like a development where everything looks the same. The variety of size of homes even. And one of the things we talked about was the fact that it seemed that a lot of what it was about was the exterior beauty and the environment that you're in when you're in these neighborhoods. And so one of the things that came out in our discussion of these ideas was the green space and the trees, and because that affects the walkability and that affects all of these aspects that we were discussing. And so one of the themes that came out for us was sort of how can we even more proactively work on the green spaces and the trees and preserve those, maybe before it becomes an issue. Like, are there ways that we can work with the city to identify places that may need help, that they're like, hey, you look like you might lose that tree. Let's help take care of it before you need a COA to take it out. And so we talked a lot about the green space because, you know, we're here about the preservation mainly of the buildings, but we have a lot of good guidelines for those. So we talked a lot about how to preserve the green spaces as well.
All right, so our group had the question of, if you could do anything with your historic neighborhood, what would it be? And we kind of discussed this for a while, and the answer is kind of grouped into several different areas. I think one of the ones we saw repeated over and over again was maybe not historic specific, but was, I think, everyone's concern, which is related to traffic safety and pedestrian walkability, right? And so we saw that repeated a bunch, and keeping the sidewalks clear and from overgrown crops and ADA accessible across the neighborhoods, as well as ways to slow down traffic and reduce that potential risk. There was other pieces in here that from a different mindset of adding more called third spaces or kind of community spaces, right, where people can get together, maybe more neighborhood events that we can help welcome neighborhoods or neighbors themselves with. And then the other kind of grouping we really saw was related to what Arlen talked about as well, which was enforcement, right? Enforcement of COAs and maybe working with absentee landlords and holding them accountable for maintaining an upkeep. And those were kind of the three main groups that we saw. I don't think there was anything else on there besides city enforcement, which we kind of just talked about as well.
So our question was, what are the biggest challenges of living in a historic home? So lots of comments about finding good carpenters, plumbers, vendors, affordability of those carpenters, plumbers, vendors, contractors. And then those that making sure that the properties are maintained and that multi-unit owners are maintaining for their residents. Parking is a big issue. And traffic not at night racing on Spring Garden. That's very specific. So they could go any street on blank blank. So needing to traffic speed enforced. And then there's the making sure that owners understand that the historic district has standards and realtors giving that to them. Now, I know that's part of their ethics and they have to, but could there be something done at the closing table? Is there some sort of enforcement? Now, when I was thinking about finding about vendors, wondered if the city could help with a list. Maybe it already exists. But if you buy a home and you don't know contractors, what are you supposed to do, right? You do the best you can. So hopefully if there was some communication that we could direct them in a way, that would be great. So, and then the third thing was environmental and balancing modernization with maintaining the historical character and just making sure that we can be energy efficient in 2024.
To touch on one thing that you mentioned, which was a contractor's list or a recommended list, I think that's a wonderful idea. However, that's not really something the city can do. They are not allowed to do that, but I can tell you who could do that, and that is the neighborhood associations. And Ann Stringfield in the past has done this with Fisher Park. I know that right now College Hill is very interested in getting involved in that, Dunleath as well. So I think it's a great opportunity for all three neighborhood associations to come together and see if they can compile a list. I think it was in the Fisher Park meeting, someone recommended that we could even list who recommended the person so that then a potential client reach out to the person who recommended them and get information about, how it went and talk to them specifically about their project. I really love that idea. And I think that's something that the neighborhood associations should really take on. That's a good point. And in collaboration with PGI, I think that would be really important. Right. I like the idea of it not laying on the responsibility on one person, creating some kind of database, maybe through, Google Sheets or Google Docs or something like that, where people can add their own information. I think that's a great idea. Well, we are right on time. Thank you everyone for sharing your summaries. One thing that I forgot to do is profusely thank Greensboro College and Ann Hearn. Can we get a round of applause? This is such a beautiful space to have a meeting in. I think it really just lent itself to the atmosphere of talking about the importance of historic spaces while we sit in such a beautiful historic space. So thank you, Ann. And one other thing that I wanted to do that I forgot at the beginning, could I get a show of hands for everyone here from College Hill? Wow. And put your hands down, please. Could I see a show of hands from Dunleath? Oh, Dunleath. Thank you so much for coming. And you know what?
I'm
I
also
saw
online.
on the Zoom, I think I saw, oh yeah, and we got some clapping from, oh gosh, what's your name? Nunez, Chris Nunez.
Chris.
There we go. I see
Yeah, Chris.
Chris. Hey,
Yeah.
Chris. Thanks for
Hello.
joining us. So we've got 2 people from Dunleath here. Okay. Thank you for representing. Hi, Chris. How about Fisher Park? Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing that. All right, at this time, I would like to go ahead and turn the floor over to individual speakers. If there's something that you'd like to share with the group, we're turning the mic over for anybody to share their thoughts about the design standards, COA process, anything related to this topic. You will have 3 minutes.
Could you all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for being late. I had meant to be there in person and then got caught up at work and just joined the Zoom just now. My one comment in terms of as we think through updates to the preservation guidelines, it's actually twofold. One is around outbuildings. I think it's really important for us to preserve. Oh boy, so sorry. It's important for us to preserve the original house structure, but so many of the outbuildings are not contributing structures anyway. And should we be given more flexibility in how those are fitted? You know, like I would love to have like an all glass, you know, kind of outbuilding that I can use as an office, for example. And you know, today that wouldn't be allowed. So that's one. Sorry about the dog. And the other is around the use of materials, it's kind of unclear to me whether we can use something like hardy board to replace like decking, that. So some clarity around that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Well, I'm Ann in Fisher Park, and I just think we all need to work very hard to see that the Register of Deeds office eventually gets a box that can be dealt with when you buy a property that says, I am in a historic district and I'm signing to buy this property. And therefore it is legally very clear that someone, in fact, did know that they were buying into a historic district. Because we try very hard, and I think I just heard the College Hill is trying very hard to educate people with the guidelines and this and that and the other, and we do too in our neighborhood. But unless it's in the Register of Deeds office, and so when you're signing your contract to buy this property, there needs to be an X and a box that says this is in a historic district. I've spoken to the Register of Deeds in several counties, and they say, well, it's not on there yet. And I say, well, who makes your software? And I've talked to them, and they say, oh, if we had enough people requesting it, we could put that box in. I do databases for a living. They can put the box in. But that's the only legal, that's a way up front that we can say, yes, you know, you bought into a historic district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. I think that's really creative. Yeah, come on up. No problem.
I'd just like to point out that not everybody gets their house that way. So for instance, I was gifted my house by my parents, and while I know that I'm in the while I know that I'm in this district, I did not have to go to the Registrar of Deeds or anything. It was done without my participation. You can get a house without having to do that. So it's not going to be fully covered.
Thank you so much, Zach. That's a good point. And we also want to think about our renters as well. Any other comments?
So with that, in College Hill, for example, as I've listed homes, I always, as a realtor, have uploaded the guidelines as an attachment, just like I do the regular property disclosure statements, and really work hard to educate people that are purchasing about what it means to live in a historic district, and then really highlight all of the benefits and the wonderful things about living in a historic district and a historic community. I wanted to ask if you would, a couple of things. Sometimes in my experience, unfortunately, there are real estate agents that think historic districts are complicated, or that people are not going to want to have to follow the really, the tricky rules. And they may not want to highlight that a home is in a historic district, which I think is really unfortunate. But I think that that's changing. But I was hoping that either Mike, Stephanie, or you could also mention that besides education And I love that idea. I think it would be fabulous if they could have it on the deed, somehow notated there. So it would be recorded, which would be fantastic and a game changer. Can we also can you speak to potentially some of the designations that I believe would attach and would show at the closing table, the protective easements, those particular protective designations? I thought that might be helpful to talk about too.
So definitely, Mary, I'll briefly speak about what we're talking about tonight. So the locally zoned historic district, that's what I just said, locally zoned. It is part of your property's zoning. So when you sign that contract to purchase your home, it will tell you the zoning on your property. Do you pay attention to that? Probably not. And that's really part of the issue. Like, even if there's a checkbox, it's people just not really taking in what they're actually committing themselves to participate in. And so the things that we've tried to do over the years, some of the neighborhoods have sign toppers. You know, that was an intentional effort to try to visually add to the street signs. You're in this historic neighborhood, this historic district. It might not necessarily be the exact, I know in Dunleath, the boundary is actually not the same. It's larger than the locally zoned boundary, but that's okay. If somebody calls us, we say, oh, you're just on the other side of the boundary. You can proceed with your project. But if somebody calls and says, am I? We say, oh, yes, you are. Hey, we'll come out and meet with you and help you through the COA process, where we try to do that. Sometimes we can handle it over the phone. So we've tried over the years different things to make people aware. The neighborhood, collaborating with the neighborhood associations, and more archaic times, we had hard copy newsletters in all 3 districts. I think most of you guys, I think, still do a paper newsletter, yeah, for tradition. But I think the others are probably transitioned to electronic newsletters, but it's still, yeah, websites too. So, you know, that education and information is kind of trying to change with the times. But, you know, new ideas can always help, and as many layers as we can have also helps too.
You're talking about the Sanibel lights, which are the big white ones, and you live on Carr Street in College Hill, is that correct? So she's saying the lighting is only on one side of the street. The other side is dark. Right. Well, I do know, just because I live in College Hill and I'm involved in the neighborhood association, that the College Hill Neighborhood Association is working with Duke Energy right now about their lights. And I do think that part of the negotiations that were on the table is that Duke Energy agreed to move some of those big Sanibel lights from obtrusive areas in the neighborhood where they're really shining in neighbors' homes. So I would highly recommend that you come to the next College Hill Neighborhood Association meeting and bring this to the group, because I think it'll reignite that discussion that they've been having already about those streetlights. Thank you for bringing that. Do we have any other comments? All right. I mean, if we have no other comments, we can go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you all so much for attending tonight. This was really fun. I enjoyed getting to know all of you, hearing your thoughts. I know some of the questions were a little out there, but the purpose was for us to all really think about what our values are right now as these 3 historic neighborhoods. And I think it really helped us gain some good insights. So I want to thank you all so much. There will be a survey. If you provided your email on the sign-in sheet, I hope you did, you will be sent a survey so that you can share more thoughts as we continue this process. And of course, we're going to keep you informed as we create, you know, a draft of the guidelines, and as we move, or not guidelines, standards, and as we move forward. So thank you so much. We will keep you informed, and have a great night, everyone.